Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Good evening. I hope everybody is staying dry and has power this evening. I know there's been some bad weather around. Remember, if anything were to come up this evening, Richard Scott will be here to cut in on TI TV. But we're ready to go. Welcome into the program. Across the studio from Rodney Orr, as we continue to respect the pandemic, I'm Gary Harris. Welcome into TI TV. Well, the NFL held its draft last week in Cleveland. As expected, the first round full of Alabama Crimson Tiders. 6 Bama players selected in round 1, which ties the record which was previously held by 2004 Miami. The Hurricanes had 6 first-round picks that year. Now, 8 picks in the first 38 selections for Alabama. That's also a record. The first Alabama player taken, though, was wide receiver Jalen Waddle to the Miami Dolphins at number 6 overall. He'll join Tua with the Fins. Then the Tide started rolling. Quarterback Patrick Surtain goes 9th to the Denver Broncos. The Philadelphia Eagles traded up to pick Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver Devontae Smith. Smith will be reunited with Jalen Hurts. Quarterback Mac Jones did not go at number 3, as many thought he would, to San Francisco, but don't feel sorry for Mac. He goes number 15 to the Patriots. More on Mac in a moment. The Las Vegas Raiders picked tackle Alex Leatherwood with the 17th pick of the first round. A little bit of a surprise there. Leatherwood joins wide receiver Henry Ruggs and Josh Jacobs in Vegas. Finally, running back Najee Harris, 24th overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6 Crimson Tide players selected in the first round. Before this year, the most Alabama first-rounders in a single draft had been 4 on numerous occasions. Now back to Mac Jones. Many of the mock drafts had him going 3rd overall to the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners instead went with Trey Lance, the quarterback from North Dakota State. But New England may be the perfect landing spot for Mac, who goes from Alabama and Nick Saban to New England and Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. It's all about the team at Alabama. It's all about doing your job. It's all about paying attention to the little things. And, here, that's kind of the same gist. And I'm looking forward to just kind of learning the differences and how I can fit in and how I can be a great teammate, how I can do my job to the best of my ability, and how I can pay attention to all the little things, the details here and there. So, 2 different coaches, but 2 great coaches. And I'm looking forward to being coached really hard by Coach Belichick.
All right, let's run down those 6 first-rounders for you again. Jalen Waddle, number 6 overall to Miami. Patrick Surtain, the 2nd, number 9 overall to Denver. Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, number 10 to Philadelphia. Mac Jones, quarterback, number 15 to New England. Alex Leatherwood. I'm so happy for Leatherwood. I always felt like he was a first-round talent. Number 17 overall to Las Vegas. And Najee Harris, the first running back taken at number 24 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then in the second round, early in the second round, offensive lineman Landon Dickerson will join Devontae Smith with the Eagles at number 37 overall, and Christian Barmore. Many projected him to be a first-rounder. The interior defensive lineman will join Mac Jones with the Patriots. That gives Alabama 8 players among the first 38 picks. As I said, 2 more Tide players go in the 6th round, both of them to Carolina. Guard Deontay Brown at 193, and long snapper Thomas Fletcher at 222. Who says you can't get drafted if you're a long snapper? Well, some Alabama players signed as undrafted free agents. Linebacker Dylan Moses with Jacksonville. I think that's a good situation. They're going to start him out in the not able to perform list and let him rehab that knee and get ready to play. Urban Meyer understands talent. I think he could stick there. Disappointed he wasn't drafted, but I think Dylan's going to be fine. And tight end Miller Forrestall signed with the Tennessee Titans. Tight end Carl Tucker with the Miami Dolphins. Well, as soon as the NFL draft ended, it was time to look ahead to the 2022 NFL draft. Rodney, I promise we're going to get you in here in a minute. According to the way too early mock drafts, tackle Evan Neal has a chance to be a top 10 pick. Neal is expected to be Alabama's starting left tackle this season after starting at right tackle last season and starting at guard in 2019. He has the size, does he ever, 6'7", 360 pounds that NFL teams covet for the offensive line. Here's the way too early 2022 mock draft by The Athletic. Evan Neal, you see there. Christian Harris, number 14 overall, inside linebacker to the Giants. Defensive back Jordan Battle, number 20 overall to the Saints. DJ Dale. I like DJ Dale. A little surprised. He's projected as a first rounder, but good for him. 24 overall to Denver. And wide receiver John Mechie, the 3rd. They've got him going to the Buffalo Bills. All right, let me get Rodney in here. And Rod, we've discussed the draft, and it's a great recruiting tool and what Alabama did. But let's look ahead. Also, cornerback Josh Jobe is receiving some early praise as a guy that you might want to watch for a potential first-round pick in 2022 in a mock draft put out by CBS Sports. Just your thoughts on this Alabama draft class that we just saw making history with 6 first-rounders, 8 in the first 38, 10 overall, and then the potential to keep doing it again with 4, 5, or 6 picks coming up in the 2022 draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things kind of flood to mind, Gary. I think one thing you have to look at, the guys who bought into the program. Mac Jones, he waited his opportunity. I think you look at Devontae Smith, he came back for his senior year. Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood, all those guys, leaders that contributed to a lot of success that Alabama had last season. You know, those guys came back, worked really hard. They upped their stock. They put themselves in a position to go in that first round really high. So I think that's one thing. I think also you look at the 2017 class. We've talked about it many times. I mean, of the guys that were in that group, Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith. But what about the guys drafted last year in the first round? Jerry Jeudy, Ruggs, Jedrick Wills, of course, Tua. I mean, what a great recruiting class that was. And so you look at those things and the success that Alabama's had and how it's going to parlay into recruiting. I mean, you know, from what I understand, the Alabama staff was on the phone, burning up the phones in that first round saying, hey, you know, a couple of years you come here, you do those things that you see these guys did, worked hard, put themselves in the position that they're in tonight. That could be you. So I think that when you look at it, Gary, yeah, you're talking about the future next year. Looks like another promising year for Alabama in the draft. And I think as we look forward, you know, 3 or 4 years, this thing could continue.
Yeah, we talked about what you just mentioned on my radio show in depth. You can hear that radio interview every week at TiderInsider.com, by the way, from Tide 100.9 FM. But we talked about all the things you do in regards to recruiting to be effective, but there's nothing more effective, let's be honest. The top players, yeah, they want to win in college. I get that. They want to win awards, but ultimately they want to get to the NFL. So when you dominate the draft like that, Rodney, how much do you even have to say? Like you said, all you have to do is just show them the numbers, right? The recruits.
Yeah, and I also think, too, Gary, what Mac Jones said about when you go to Alabama, it's as a team. I think that's the one thing that they sell. You've asked many times, and you've talked about this many times, about how Nick Saban's had success holding on to these 5 stars, making them happy, so to speak. And, you know, I think a part of it is you get these guys to buy into the team concept, and they understand you play within the team, you have success, you're going to get your individual rewards as well. And I think that's just really the culture here at Alabama that's made it so successful.
Yeah, it just keeps on rolling. Other schools aspire to be where Alabama is at, but it's tough for other schools to get there when Alabama keeps cranking out top recruiting classes and then sending this many guys onto the NFL draft. All right, let's move on. Alabama softball is in a winning rhythm. Fourth-ranked Crimson Tide swept the 3-game series at number 21 Georgia over the weekend in Athens. Alabama's won 7 straight. Infielder Savannah Woodard is the SEC Newcomer of the Week. In 3 games against UGA, Woodard scored 3 runs and collected 4 RBI. She reached base at least twice in all 3 games. There is 1 weekend left before the SEC softball tournament. Alabama hosts Ole Miss beginning on Thursday night at 6 p.m. The Tide will hold a Senior Day ceremony Saturday morning at 11 before the final game of the regular season. And then the SEC tournament begins here at the Rhodes House next Wednesday. Wow. Almost here. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama baseball handles Missouri, and the Tide now finds itself in a spot that has been out of reach for a long time around here. We'll explain. And Alabama football feels its need for speed. We'll tell you about the impressive commitment the Tide got out of a transfer portal player. That's coming up next. And we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information right there on your screen. The phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Let us hear from you. Welcome back to TITV. Quick weather note, the National Weather Service has canceled the tornado watch for Tuscaloosa and the University of Alabama, so we are all clear. This is Tider Insider Television. I'm Gary Harris. Rodney Orr is right there across the studio. And Rodney, we got some big news for Alabama football and Nick Saban's theory of always, you can't get enough good football players. Alabama seems to have a lot of talent, albeit inexperienced for the most part at wide receiver. But when Jamison Williams went into the portal, Alabama kept an eye on him. He was the guy they recruited out of St. Louis. Let's get to his commitment. Last season as a sophomore at Ohio State, Williams had 9 receptions for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. Remember, they didn't play many games. He had 1 catch for 14 yards during the Buckeyes' loss to Alabama in the national championship game and made a great tackle in punt coverage on Devontae Smith. 6'2", 188 600-pound wideout. He joins the Crimson Tide after Alabama lost a pair of standout receivers in Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, 2 top 10 picks in last weekend's NFL draft. Alabama heavily recruited Williams out of high school at Cardinal Ritter in St. Louis when he was a 4-star prospect and won about every track event that he ran in that year in the state of Missouri. He's seriously fast, and he seriously considered UA before committing to and signing with the Ohio State University. All right, Rodney, let me ask you. You've got Ncaa, you've got Bolden at Alabama. After that, you don't have a lot of experienced receivers. You've got some serious young talent, but Alabama takes Jameson Williams. Why?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons here. Number one, he's very, very talented, obviously, but the speed. I mean, Nick Saban said it right after, a couple days after spring practice started. He said there's one thing they needed in that room. Not that they don't have it, but more speed and experience speed. I think that's what you get with Jameson Williams, a guy that's done it on this level. You mentioned he hadn't played a lot. Played in 4 games as a true freshman. Gary had a 61-yard touchdown reception. It was a fantastic play on a slant route that he had to really make a great adjustment on and showed his great ability on that play. But then last year, he only played in 6 games because, as you mentioned, their season in the Big Ten was shortened. But he made, here's this play, this 45-yard touchdown reception in the playoff game against Clemson. He had another big, long touchdown against Rutgers. But it's the speed. The speed, he's got experience. I remember when he was in high school.
Rod, watch the head fake right here. We're in 6. That looks just like Devontae Smith, doesn't it?
I mean, again, Gary, in high school, he was one of the elite receivers in the country, narrowed it to Alabama and Ohio State. So, listen, I think anytime you can add this kind of speed and experience, it's hard to pass up at the wide receiver core.
Indeed. There's fast, there's speed, and then there's world-class speed. This guy's a record holder in the 300-meter hurdles and other events in high school, averaged 17.7 yards per catch at Ohio State, so he can get up with the big plays downfield. He is joining the Crimson Tide. Well, now it's time for Coach Talk. Before Alabama finished up spring practice, head coach Nick Saban was asked about the transfer portal and how he and his staff see the portal as not as a negative, but as something useful.
We'll only look for transfers that are going to help our team be better. So that means we have to have a need for them. They have to be better than the guys that we have in the program right now at their position. And so we'll be selective in how we choose guys. We're still going to recruit quality players that we can develop in the program.
Well, Rodney, Coach said it all, and you said it. Alabama felt a need to add some speed and get faster at the wide receiver position. Saban said last week, quote, "I think speed kills on the football field and on the highway," end quote. And Rodney, this guy, Jameson Williams, he brings the speed, but real specific, like everything he does on how Alabama's going to handle that transfer portal. They're not going to be out there just randomly taking guys. If they take somebody from that portal, it better be a guy, like he said, that they feel is better than some of the other options that they have, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, Gary, certainly you've got numbers. You're limited in the numbers, and they sign high-quality players. There's no question about that. So have to be very selective if they add someone. And, again, I think you're being very selective with Jameson Williams because he's a guy that can come in. And, again, nothing against that young talent that they have. They all have an opportunity to be fantastic players in time. But you have to remember, this is a guy that's been in college football now for 2 years, and that experience with that speed is a combination I don't think you could pass up.
Yeah, just can't get enough good football players. That's just the reality. All right, Alabama baseball has a winning record in SEC play for the first time since the Tide was 1-0. When they beat Arkansas 16-1 to open the season. Over the weekend, the Tide scored a 3-game sweep of Mizzou, and Bama's 11-10 in the league. That's awesome. My goal was for the Tide to go 15-15. They've got a chance. It was Alabama's first ever sweep of Missouri and Bama's first sweep of an SEC opponent since they were able to do it back in 2017. This weekend, Alabama travels to Nashville for a series with Vanderbilt. Game 1 is Friday night at 6:30. Well, the Alabama men's tennis team is headed to the Baylor University campus this weekend for the first round of the NCAA championships. The Tide will face Oregon in the first round on Saturday. It's the 3rd straight time to the NCAA championships and the 20th overall for the men's tennis program. 3 years ago in 2018, Alabama advanced to the Sweet 16. Also last week, Alabama senior Edson Ortiz earned first-team All-SEC honors for the 2nd time in his Tide career. Well, still to come on TITV, Hill County High School celebrates one of its favorite and notable graduates. Find out who that is coming up. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV at 205-348-9882 or contact us via email or tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back after this.
The people that showed up, I mean, it just shows how many lives are affected. And, you know, I mean, I had no idea. It's just a blessing to be able to be such an impact on a group of people.
Well, last Thursday at Hale County High School in Moundville, former Wildcat Herb Jones was honored by his former high school. A huge turnout, including Alabama assistant coach Antoine Petway, celebrated the reigning SEC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. Jones graduated from Hale County High School in 2017. He led the Wildcats to the Class 4A State Basketball Championship as a senior before going on to Alabama and led the Tide to the return of the Southeastern Conference standings. Jones' #2 jersey will be hanging in the rafters of the Hale County High School Gymnasium, and let me tell you something, he deserves it. Real quick note, I want to clarify something. You might have seen me pause a little bit when I was talking about Alabama baseball. The Tide did sweep Texas A&M in College Station earlier this season, so they had that sweep, and now they get another one. We took that off the baseball notes. Maybe that's the first home sweep since 2017, but I want to be clear that Alabama did have a sweep earlier this season in the SEC as well. All right, let's head to the phone lines. First up is Sammy up in Walker County. My main man, Sammy the Tomato Man. How you doing, pal?
Hello, Gary. Hello, Rodney. It's all about the rain up here, fellas. It's coming down everywhere. But, Gary, I got 54 in the ground. If they don't drown, they're going to come on, buddy.
All right. Hey, what about some watermelons this year, too? You working on any watermelons?
Hey, they're in the ground, too, if they don't get flooded out.
All right. All right. Well, what you got for us?
My question there, Gary and Rodney, I think y'all know how much I love Jalen Waddle. I think he was the most talented player on the whole squad. And Gary and Rodney, who's going to return the punts next year? Will we have anybody close to his kind of ability?
Well, Okay, Sam, I don't know anybody in the country has somebody that good. First of all, on Jalen, he's going to be a big shot in the arm for the Dolphins, Rodney, for Tua. And not just I know they want to stretch the field a little bit, but he's the kind of guy you can run the jet sweep with him. You just get it in his hands right around the line of scrimmage, and he can loosen up that defense. So Jalen's going to be a big hit for the Dolphins and Tua. Now, as far as Alabama, Rodney, they've got some exciting prospects to return kicks and punts, but I'm not sure, again, anybody's got anybody as good as Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, he's kind of hard to find. He's a rarity, no question about that. And, who's going to return punts, Sammy? I think they're going to utilize a lot of the camp to try to figure out some of these things, and that would be one of them. Perhaps Slade Bolden, he's done it in the past some. I think JaQuincy McKinstry, the true freshman, Kool-Aid, I would keep an eye on him. I think Nick Saban has proven that, look, if I can trust you back there to field the punt, like he did Jalen Waddle, true freshman, first game against Louisville, he put him back there. I think if Kool-Aid can be trusted to field the punt, then I think he's got a great opportunity to be back there, maybe in the Miami game returning punts. We'll see.
Yeah, first key to being a great punt returner is catching the punt. You got to catch it first, so that's the most important thing. Coach Bryant used to tell them, want somebody back there to catch the punts. And don't want them dropping them, want them catching them. All right, let's get to a Twitter question, and this is from Goal Line Stan. Will Alabama continue its draft success in 2022? How many Tide players could go in the first round next year? Goal Line Stan, we kind of laid that out earlier, Rodney, but I think, again, they got a chance every year in this program to have 3, 4, 5 first-rounders, just pretty much like clockwork.
Yeah, and you went over several of them, obviously, in that mock draft, and we'll see. I mean, you never know. Look, there could be a guy like even DeMarco Helms or Jordan Battle. Those guys now going into their junior year, they'll be draft eligible. Certainly, they'll be worth watching to see how they develop. I think Christian Harris was in that list.
Yeah, he's one in the first round.
Yeah, so great athlete there, Christian Harris. So we'll see, but yeah, looks like maybe 4 or 5 again next year.
Yeah, Christian Harris can flat out play. All right, more phone calls and emails when we come back. There's the number again, 205-348-9882. We'll be right back on TITV after this. The Bama women's golf team is one of 18 teams selected to compete at the 2021 NCAA Women's Baton Rouge Regional. The announcement was made last week. The regional begins at the Par 72 University Club in Baton Rouge this week, and the Crimson Tide's the number 6 seed for the regional. It's the 15th consecutive regional berth under head coach Mick Potter, and the 22nd regional in school history. The men will find out their regional site tomorrow. And welcome back into TI TV. Along with Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Let's go back out on the phones and welcome in Rick, our pal there over in Bluff Park. Hey, Rick.
Hey, fellas, appreciate you taking my call. I wanted to talk about cramps. You know, I noticed during one of the NCAA basketball games that a player had cramps and he was over on the sideline chugging Gatorade and all this. If you've got cramps, that's too late. What has worked for me, I do a lot of outside work, and I got dehydrated one day. I was on the way home. My toes were cramping up. I had cramps on the inner thighs muscles, and not to mention that my thumbs were just glued up next to my index finger. I got home, I called my cousin. He said do either pickle juice or mustard. I did both. And I tell you, they worked within 5 minutes. It's the doggonest thing I ever saw in my life, because and I also came to understand that if you have cramps in places where you don't normally, you're on the verge of a heat stroke.
Yeah,
y'all comment on that, fellas, and I appreciate it.
Well, you know,
Rick,
yeah, I guess because I played sports when I was younger, and I've been around it as a sportscaster my whole life. I actually knew that. I knew pickle juice was a big one, Rodney, and I had heard mustard as well, but I'd always heard pickle juice was a great way to get rid of cramps.
Yeah, I've seen Alabama players drinking pickle juice. Trent Richardson, I remember one time he was cramping up, but I don't remember the specific game, but yeah, he was drinking pickle juice on the sideline. So, yeah, that's been around a while, but I appreciate Rick bringing that up.
Yeah, Rick, good to hear from you. All right, thanks for the phone calls and the tweet tonight. We're going to come back and wrap up TITV right after this. Graduation season in Tuscaloosa, and over 100 student athletes graduated from the capstone over the weekend. Alabama athletics total includes a 7-time NBA champion, an NCAA champion, 16 All-Americans, 3 academic All-Americans, as well as 31 student athletes who earned master's degrees. 7-time NBA champion Robert Horry, who played for the Crimson Tide from '89 to '92, returned to the capstone after earning his bachelor's degree this spring. That's always so neat to see those type of stories. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. A reminder that you can catch a replay of the show tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We leave you tonight with more of the Hale County ceremony with Herb Jones. Good night, everybody.